If you are going through the worst moment of your life, feeling that everything has fallen apart, that it has lost its meaning, that God has abandoned you, take a deep breath. You are not in crisis. You are in the dark night of the soul, and that means something extraordinary is about to be born. Did you know that the greatest spiritual leaders, the brightest thinkers, and the most enlightened souls in history have one thing in common? They all went through a period of suffering so intense, so deep, that they thought they were going crazy. But in fact, they were just waking up. The dark night of the soul is not about you being broken, failed, or lost with no return. It's just the opposite. It's the sign that you're about to become such a high version of yourself that your current life simply can't hold who you're becoming anymore. Here's the paradox that will turn your head. The happiest, most fulfilled, most aware people you know didn't get there through motivational courses, positive affirmations, or optimistic thinking. They got there because they went through hell first and came out the other side reborn. While everyone sells you the idea that spiritual transformation is light, love, and lightness, no one has the courage to tell you the truth. Before dawn comes the darkest night you've ever seen. And if you're feeling like your life is falling apart right now, that nothing makes sense anymore, that you don't know who you are anymore, congratulations, you're not having a nervous breakdown. You're having a painful awakening, and that is the best thing that could be happening to you. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you the 7 undeniable signs that you're going through the dark night of the soul, and why each one, no matter how brutal it seems, is actually a gift disguised as a curse. I'm going to reveal to you what no one tells you about this process of ego death and spiritual rebirth, and how to recognize that you are not breaking, but breaking old patterns to finally become who you came to be. If you've ever felt like you're dying on the inside while still living on the outside, this video will make it all finally make sense. If you recognize at least 3 of these 7 signs in your life, leave the number 7 here in the comments. Because you need to know that you are not alone in this crossing, and there is an entire community here that understands exactly what you are going through. There is a moment in some people's journey when everything simply stops making sense. That hard-fought career you've built, the relationships that seemed solid, even the dreams that moved you, it all starts to feel empty, like you're watching someone else's life. It's like waking up on any given day and realizing that you were following a script that was never really yours, you know? The dark night of the soul comes precisely at this point, when the old purposes dissolve and you are there, in the middle of nowhere, without a compass. Many people try to disguise this feeling, run back to their routine, drown in work or distractions. But the truth is that when you are going through this deep spiritual crisis, no distraction can fill the hole that has opened up inside you. It's different from a bad time or a difficult time. It's a visceral feeling that you're completely lost, like you're in a dark forest with no trail back. This emptiness is not ordinary depression. It is something more ancestral, deeper, touching layers of your existence that you didn't even know existed. The scariest thing about all of this is that you can't explain to anyone what you're feeling. How can you say that everything has lost its meaning when, objectively, your life seems to be normal? The people around you continue to live, laugh, plan for the future, and you are there, feeling that you have fallen into an existential abyss that no one else can see. But this painful awakening, as brutal as it is preparing you for something much bigger than you realize. And it has to do with how you'll start to move away from everything you know. When the dark night of the soul really sets in, something curious happens. You begin to withdraw from everything and everyone, almost instinctively. It's not a conscious decision, you know. It is as if your body and soul are asking for a forced retreat from the world. Those parties you love to attend, the get-togethers with friends, even casual conversations at work. All of it starts to weigh you down, drain your energy in a way you've never experienced before. You just can't stand being present in places where you have to pretend everything is fine. The most paradoxical thing about this phase is that you can be surrounded by people and still feel a deep, almost suffocating loneliness. It's like being at a crowded party but feeling completely invisible, disconnected from everyone there. This spiritual transformation that's going on inside you creates a kind of invisible bubble, and the people on the other side just can't reach you. You try to explain, you try to make yourself understood, but you realize that you are speaking a language that no one else understands, and then silence seems the only option that makes sense. And look, there is an intense need to be alone that takes care of you. It's not laziness, it's not anti-socialism, it's a spiritual urge to retreat, as if you need to hibernate in order to process everything that's dying inside you. You cancel appointments, ignore messages, avoid calls, and each time you do that, you feel a mixture of guilt and relief. But this extreme isolation is not escape, my friend. It is preparation for the collapse that is about to happen in the structures that have supported your life until now. Now things start to get really intense because the dark night of the soul doesn't come alone. It brings about a complete demolition of the structures you've spent years building. That 5-year relationship, it ends out of nowhere. The stable job that gave you security, suddenly you're fired or you just can't take it anymore and asked to leave. The friendships that seemed eternal, they begin to dissolve like salt in water. It's as if the universe has decided to dismantle your life piece by piece, and you sit there, helpless, watching it all fall apart. What is most frightening in this phase of spiritual crisis is the speed with which everything happens. It's not a gradual process, you know. It's like those buildings that implode in seconds. One day you have a structured life, the next you're all on the ground. Your beliefs about love, work, success, purpose, everything you believe to be absolute truth, begins to crack. That idea that if you work hard, you will be rewarded, crumbles. The belief that relationships last forever if there is love, turns to dust, and you stand there, in the rubble, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But here's the secret that few realize at the moment. This existential collapse is not the end. It's a necessary cleansing. It's like when you need to demolish an old house to build something new and more solid in its place. Each structure that falls is freeing up space. It is taking you out of patterns that no longer serve. The problem is, when you're in the midst of destruction, covered in dust and pain, it's impossible to see the hidden blessing in it all. And as you try to process this external demolition, something even deeper is happening inside. A pain that even the best doctors can't diagnose. This is where it gets really confusing, because you start to feel a deep sadness that has no logical explanation. You go to the doctor, do all the possible tests, and everything comes back normal. Your hormone levels are okay. There's nothing physically wrong with you. But the anguish is still there, heavy, constant, as if you had a hole in your chest that nothing can fill. It's different from ordinary sadness, you know? You can't point your finger and say, I'm sad because of this or that. It's something much deeper, which comes from layers of your soul that traditional medicine can't reach. The painful awakening brings with it this kind of suffering that defies all logic. You may have achieved everything you've ever wanted, a nice house, a car, a stable relationship, money in your account, and still wake up in the middle of the night with a feeling of utter emptiness. Suddenly, you find yourself crying for no particular reason, whether it's taking a shower, driving, or even in the middle of an important meeting. The tears just come, as if your soul is purging something old, something that has been stored for years and now needs to come out. And the worst? You can't explain it to anyone without sounding crazy or dramatic. This existential pain is actually the symptom of a gigantic spiritual transformation happening within you. It's like you're dying and being reborn at the same time, and every rebirth hurts. Just ask any mum who's ever been through childbirth. Your physical body is fine, but your soul is in labor, trying to give birth to a new version of you. But for that to happen, something has to die first, and that death, my friend, is the most painful of all, because it involves the very idea you had of who you are. We have reached the most critical point of the dark night of the soul, the moment when you simply no longer know who you are. That identity you've built over the years, I'm a lawyer, I'm a devoted mom, I'm the successful guy in the family, begins to dissolve like smoke. It's terrifying because we spend our whole lives building a persona, an image of ourselves, and suddenly that image starts to crack, to fall apart, to die. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, someone you don't recognize anymore, and you think, who am I without all these labels? This ego death is brutal because it messes with everything you believe to be true about yourself. Do you know those characteristics that you always thought defined you? Well, they start to fall one by one. Have you always seen yourself as a strong and resilient person? Suddenly, he finds himself vulnerable and fragile. Have you always been the extrovert in the class? Now, it needs silence and solitude. It's as if someone had deleted the programming code that made you work in a certain way, and you were left there without a script, without a manual, without knowing how to be. And look, there's nothing scarier than losing your own internal references. What few people understand is that this spiritual crisis is not destroying who you really are. It is just destroying who you thought you were. Everything you believed yourself to be is dying, yes, but only because these layers were false. They were masks created to survive in the world, to please others, to fit in. Underneath all this is a true essence waiting to be revealed, but it can only emerge when the false dies completely. And as this process of death happens, the universe begins to send you increasingly evident signals that you are not alone in this crossing. Just when you think you're completely lost in the darkness, the universe begins to speak to you in ways that are impossible to ignore. Synchronicities explode in your life. You think of someone, and they call you minutes later, see the same number repeated everywhere. 1111, 333, 444. Open a book randomly, and the page talks about exactly what you're experiencing. It's no coincidence, my friend. It's the cosmos nudging you, reminding you that there is a greater intelligence orchestrating all this. Each sign is like a reminder that you haven't gone mad. You're just waking up to a reality that has always been there, but that you had never been able to see. The most fascinating thing about this phase of spiritual transformation is realizing how the universe literally conspires to push you in the right direction, even when you resist. Doors that you insisted on keeping open close tightly, and you stay there, knocking, begging to come in again. But as you cry through the closed door, 3 others open up on your side. Only you were so focused on the loss that you didn't even notice the new opportunities. That job that ended, it freed you to discover your true calling. That relationship that ended, it made room for you to find yourself first. This constant communication with the unseen intensifies as you dive deeper into the dark night of the soul. Vivid dreams bring clear messages. Animals appear in your path with specific meanings. Random conversations with strangers touch exactly on your wound. It is as if you have tuned into a different frequency, into a spiritual radio that you have always been transmitting, but that you are only now able to pick up. And in the midst of all this chaos of signs and messages, something unexpected begins to emerge. A deep silence, an emptiness that no longer scares, but strangely comforts. After all the storm, all the pain and destruction, something amazing happens. You arrive in a void that is unlike anything you have felt so far. It's not that desperate emptiness at the beginning, you know. It's a deep, almost sacred inner silence, as if you finally stopped fighting and surrendered to the process. It's like when you're completely exhausted after crying for hours. There's that weird peace, that stillness. This emptiness is not empty of purpose or meaning. In fact, it is full of potential, pregnant with possibilities that have not yet been born. It is the moment when you realize that spiritual rebirth does not happen in the noise, but precisely in that fertile silence. There is a very peculiar sensation in this phase of the dark night of the soul that few people can accurately describe. It is like being in the womb waiting to be reborn. You feel like you're being gestated, prepared, molded for a new version of yourself, but it's not yet time to step out into the light. Everything is dark, cramped, uncomfortable, but at the same time you realize that you are safe, protected, being nourished by forces that you do not control. Space is being created for the new dreams, new identity, new purpose. But that space needs to be completely cleaned first, you know? You can't build a new house on top of rubble. That fertile void is actually the sign that you've survived the worst part of the crossing. The existential collapse has done its job. The death of the ego has already happened. And now you are in that moment suspended between what has died and what is yet to be born. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But it's also the most powerful moment of the entire journey, because it's here that you finally understand that you needed to empty so you could fill it again. Only this time, with things that are true, authentic, aligned with who you really are. And maybe you're asking yourself now, why does all this need to happen? Why does spiritual transformation need to be so brutal, so painful, so complete? The truth that no one tells you is that the dark night of the soul is necessary because you cannot be reborn without dying first. Think with me. The caterpillar doesn't turn into a butterfly through a smooth, comfortable process. It literally dissolves completely inside the cocoon, turns into a soup of cells before rearranging itself into a whole new form. You are no different. This spiritual crisis that you are going through is not a punishment. It is not bad luck. It is not a sign that you have done something wrong. It is exactly the opposite. It is a sign that your soul is ready to evolve, to transcend the limits of the old version of you that no longer serves. What comes after this crossing is a version of you that even in your wildest dreams you couldn't imagine. It's an absurd clarity about your real purpose, about who you came to be in this life. The relationships that remained or came after are deep, true, without masks. The work you do now has meaning, it has soul, it has impact. You stop living on autopilot and start living for real, with presence, with intention, with authenticity. The painful awakening turns into an enlightened awakening. You see life with completely new eyes, as if you had taken off some foggy lenses that you have worn your whole life without realizing it. But how to go through this consciously, without going crazy along the way? First, accept that you're not breaking, you're transforming. Second, stop resisting the process. The more you fight the dark night of the soul, the longer it lasts and the more it hurts. Third, seek support from those who have been through this, whether through deep therapy, spiritual mentoring, or communities that understand this journey. Fourth, trust in the signs, in the synchronicities, in the wisdom of the fertile void. And fifth, remember every day, you're not lost, you're finding yourself. The most profound spiritual transformation of your life is happening right now, right now. Now I ask you, how many of these 7 signs do you recognize in your own life? If you are going through this or know someone who is, leave number 7 here in the comments so we know that you are not alone in this crossing. And if this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, because we will continue to dive deep into these topics that no one else has the courage to talk about. The spiritual rebirth that awaits you on the other side is worth every second of this pain, and I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. So what are you going to do with all this that you've just discovered? Will you continue to resist the transformation, fight the process, pretend that the dark night of the soul will pass if you ignore it? Or will you finally accept that you're in the middle of the most important journey of your life and dive headfirst into it with awareness and courage? Because here's the hard truth. You can go through this existential breakdown in two ways: as a victim or as a warrior. As someone who suffers without understanding, or as someone who goes through the pain, knowing that on the other side there is a version of you so powerful, so authentic, so aligned with your real purpose, that it will be worth every tear shed. Now answer me sincerely. Are you ready to let go of who you thought you were and embrace who you really are? Are you ready to stop living on autopilot, following scripts that were never yours, chasing dreams that aren't even really yours? Because the spiritual rebirth that awaits you is not for everyone, no. It is only for those who have the courage to die alive, to dismantle everything they have built, to be naked and vulnerable in the fertile void until something true can be born. The question is not whether you deserve this transformation. The question is, do you have the courage to claim it? If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has recognized every word that has been spoken. You didn't come across this video by chance. Nothing is by chance when you're going through the deepest spiritual crisis of your existence. So do this. Subscribe to this channel now and activate the notification bell, because I'll keep bringing you content that will guide you through this dark night until you reach the most glorious dawn you've ever seen. We'll dive even deeper into the mysteries of spiritual transformation, ego death, conscious awakening, and you'll need to be here for every step of this journey. Your soul has already chosen to evolve. Now it's just your ego that needs to accept and surrender. So, are you ready to be reborn?